here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
And when you're working with clients who, we're taking into consideration the cultural systemic trauma that's just there. It's just there in the field. And we're supporting individuals and collective and creating that internal safety. What are the first things that you're looking at to help them connect with? So those things are happening simultaneously, right?
Yeah, it's actually a really complex thing to talk about, which is why I'm just taking a beat to sort of be really intentional about my
Sure.
answer. And I think we have in psychedelic research some really, really beautiful research that's looking at the impact of psychedelics on racial trauma. And if
Mhm.
you read those articles, I mean, I think what they seem to suggest is that psychedelic experiences, and I know we're talking about regular therapy, and I'll circle to that, but psychedelic experiences can help with the impact of systemic oppression. And we still need to acknowledge that when people are re-entering those systems of oppression and violence, that is going to affect their body each and every time. And the only way to be completely armed against that is dissociation. And dissociation is what, as therapists, we're often trying to work with skillfully to help people become more integrated, more embodied, more feeling. But I love the sort of revolution that we've had in trauma healing work, that for many progressive trauma therapists, we no longer think of dissociation as a symptom to treat. And we
Yeah.
think of it as an adaptive strategy that we're respecting and helping very slowly for that dissociative part of that person to move out of the way and give them more space for embodiment and pleasure. So let me try to speak to your question directly, which, if I was understanding it, is how do I start with people building more internal resilience and more internal safety? And in traditional non-psychedelic psychotherapy, the ways I would approach that is first building a container that is both sincere, human, reciprocal, and safe according to what they need. And that means giving a lot more of myself while still being very rigorous with maintaining the ethical boundaries of psychotherapy. It requires bringing a kind of authenticity that you can't hide behind, because what you might be bringing into that room that might be making a client feel unsafe needs to be addressed so that they can actually sit there with you.
Yeah.
And that process can be a long process in and of itself.
hmm
Um, the way I practice psychotherapy is I could talk a lot about different modalities that I do and how effective they are, but I would say the single strategy that I use that's probably the most effective one is simply to say, let's slow down what
Yeah.
just happened. Because again, I think when we come into the context of any kind of relationship, we've been socialized since childhood to ignore what our bodies are telling us about what's happening in that interaction. And as therapists, we're trained to see it, right? Maybe it's just a small micro adjustment in the body or a change in a breathing pattern. But if you can make a person feel safe enough that you can then say, let's pause and just explore what just happened, because I'm noticing that something feels different in your body than the words that are coming from your mouth. Let's
hmm
take some time with that. For some people, that's the first time ever that they've ever received the message that it's safe to listen to what's happening to their body and that somebody else cares about it.
hmm
And then that can be carried into future relationships. But many people are just, we're often sort of socialized in families where, in order to survive, we have to learn to
hmm
ignore what we're feeling, ignore our impulses, ignore our vitality, and in some cases, really learn to disconnect from our body's natural aliveness.
Sure, sure. And the habit of bypassing or moving quickly beyond those internal reactions so that they're not with the vulnerability of those feelings or whatever information is there at that moment. That's really powerful to have that attunement from a practitioner like that. Like that goes back to the first question that we were talking about, the importance of doing the self-work as a facilitator. Yeah, so you can catch those pieces.
If the message society is giving you is that your worth is related to how much you can power through, then you're not going to take the time to risk falling apart.
Which is something many of us are afraid of, the fear of feeling too much, that we fall apart, that we get overwhelmed, that we can't pick ourselves up after feeling too much.
Yeah. I mean, the orientation of my work and writing, at least in this moment, is very centered on the idea of how pleasure can heal us. But other colleagues that I work frequently with in the field, I'm thinking of my colleague Laura May Northrup, who I spoke with at Psychedelic Science, and they're also just a wonderful therapist focusing in the same area. Talks a lot about that healing also means suffering.
Yeah.
And you could be sad for a very long time when you're trying to heal deep traumas that your body is holding. So the caveat I would make to that, I mean, I'm mentioning Laura's work because I respect it tremendously, and very much respect how Laura frames their healing process, or their work with survivors. And at the same time, I would pick that up and add to it that what is really central to my work is that I am trying to help people also to imagine a life that's worth living, that is beyond their suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I also think traditional psychotherapy can be obsessively focused on our traumas, the stories of our individual problems, our suffering. And there is a space that it is profoundly helpful to have a therapist tolerate that, witness that, give us all the space to feel it. And somebody has to say to you also, what now? Or else we risk that our identities become trauma. Mm-hmm. And that's where pleasure becomes our ally in healing. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately we are doing this so that we can reconnect to the world, that we can be present in it, we can feel in it, and that we can do something with these precious human lives we have that is meaningful to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how can we hold space for both of these processes, or even titrate, meaning like little bits at a time, both back and forth? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.